All right. So, hi, my name is Ruthie Giles. I am an associate for prospect development here with Stockpile Analytics Group. And I'm here to talk to you today, not talk to you, but talk with you about preparing your portfolio for the upcoming campaign year. These water cooler chats are meant to be very interactive, so don't feel like you have to wait. This is not a super formal presentation. Yes, I put together some slides, but this is for us to talk as a group, share ideas and thoughts, and you know, maybe someone has solutions. Always good to hear folks have interesting solutions that they're using. So feel free to pipe in at any time. You can use the chat or you can just take yourself off mute and go ahead and talk. So either way, I'm fine with either. Don't feel like you're interrupting. This is, a time for all of us. So that being said, we'll move on to. So I'm going to tell you a little story. Just to sort of set the mood for the day. For those who have read the Stop Hell blog this month, you already know the story, so you're just going to hear it again. And for those who don't, it's a short story. So this handsome fellow on the screen is my father, and the story is about him. When I was a kid, my dad, he'd like to pile us all into the car on a nice, I don't know how the weather is where you are, but it's fairly decent here right now. But on a nice summer day or a nice spring day, he'd pile us all in the car and go for a drive. This is back in like the 70s or the 80s. There were no cell phones, no GPS. I lived in rural Maine, so there weren't a lot of street signs. There weren't really street signs. Houses didn't have numbers back then where I lived. If we were lucky, we might have had a map in the car, but we were just relying solely on my dad, his sort of shaky sense of direction. It was okay, it wasn't great. And his somewhat rusty recollection of roads that he'd driven on sometime in the previous 50 decades, because he was born in the 20s. So by the time it gets to be the 70s, some of the roads he hadn't been on in quite some time. And he wouldn't always tell us where we're going. He'd just say, we're going for a drive, and we all pile in the car. We get really excited, thought it was fun. And at some point, I swear, on every single drive, he'd turn down a little dirt road, because there are a lot of dirt roads up in rural Maine in the 70s. And we'd all be like, where's this going? Where are we going? He's like, don't worry, it's a shortcut. And he was infamous for these shortcuts. And we're like, shortcut to where? And he would never tell us. He's like, you'll see. And these infamous shortcuts, sometimes they took us to really cool places. We'd have like an ice cream stand or at a lake and we could go swimming, or sometimes we even like stumbled out into like a state park or a friend's house situation. So like they could be fun, but just as many times, these shortcuts would end up someplace you didn't necessarily want to be. We ended up at a dump once at a gravel pit, the back end of a cow pasture, in a cornfield once, and a few times we had to turn around in random people's backyards just because we didn't know where we're going. So, these shortcuts weren't always great, but my dad never knew where these rides were going to take us, was the truth of the matter. For him, it was just the act of like getting in the car and driving that he enjoyed the most. So the point of the story is, like we're here to actually talk about portfolios, but the point of the story is if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. That was pretty much my dad's goal in life with these drives. Right. So when we're getting ready to prepare our portfolios for the upcoming year, there are things that we need to know in order to get where we're going. So a few of them listed here on the slide, like what are our goals? What are the metrics for the year? Do individual gift officers have specific goals to them? Maybe they're not all the same goal. Like sometimes it's, everyone raised $5 million each, and sometimes it's you raise 5, you raise 3, you raise 2, based on their portfolios. But we need to know what these things are. They help us to create that plan that's going to help us get to where we're going. And if we know what these goals, these measurements, these things are throughout the year, we can help prepare our gift officers through their portfolios to be successful for the year ahead. So, are there, as you're, seeing this list, and I'm sure you're thinking, oh, and that's also my dad in the photo, sorry, like half shirtless gentleman. But as you're, looking at the slide and thinking, are there things that you need to know? And you don't have to shout them out. You can put them in the chat, or you can just think quietly to yourself, like, are there things that you need to know as you're planning right now that you're not yet getting? Like, what kind of things would help you plan for your upcoming campaign year? And I do say campaign year, knowing full well that some of us are in that non-campaign phase, which often means this is the silent phase of the not yet determined, yet to be named campaign is usually how the years that aren't quote unquote campaign years become. So we're in a silent phase we don't know about yet, perhaps. But we're getting ready to prepare these portfolios for the upcoming year. There are things we need to know first. And there's specific information that we are going to need. So as you're thinking, like, here are some of the things you're going to need, but there's probably others, right? Yeah. So as we know that there are other things we need to know, there's always some sort of like things that might detour our plan, detour our travels, right? And some of these are real basic, like the administration of things. There's a lot of layers of approvals and decision makers that we have to wade through in order to restructure a portfolio, perhaps. Politics, there's always office politics, whether we enjoy it or not, no matter how big or small. And office politics isn't always a bad thing. I know sometimes the word politics gets a bad rap, but it's just sort of like that, you know, the sort of the pecking order of it all. Now I've made us chickens. But thinking about the office politics, sometimes there's a certain order in which we need to get approval of things, which sort of is administrative, but sometimes it's also like this is the politics. You have to go to your supervisor, their supervisor, and the VP has to sign off on it before you can move prospect A to portfolio B, which sounds silly, but some places it works this way because that's the way it is. Other offices, maybe you're grappling with office culture and can't change culture. You're not going through the portfolio planning process, change the culture, but you need to be aware of it and adjust for it. And sometimes culture is great, and sometimes culture is toxic. And then there's all the layers in between those two spaces. But knowing what your office culture is sometimes will influence how you plan your portfolios for the year. I can think of one place where there was a gift officer who was much beloved, but fabulous person, very sweet, but not always the best gift officer. So they just knew to sort of coddle this person and set up that person's portfolio to be easy. They didn't give them a lot of challenges, very much the low-hanging fruit, and their goals were not set high. And it bothered the other gift officers, as I think it well should, because their goals were set higher, they got more challenges, and they got sort of, they were pushed to do more. So sometimes cultures can be hard, but knowing that that one gift officer got sort of the easier, less challenging, low-hanging fruit portfolio allowed me to set her up for her version of success, even though it wasn't, might not always been the great thing. And then there's just the issue of power in your office, right? Some of us, we are in positions in our offices where we don't necessarily have the authority to do certain things. And so we have to go up through the chain of, clawing through the culture, the politics, the administration to get things to happen. We can't just make it happen because we don't necessarily have the position or the power for that. I see a couple things in the chat, so let me check this out. All right. What is a trustee's special urgent project?
And this is about your last slide. What other projects do you know that you have to take care of first?
Yep. So yeah, that's going back to this one. Yeah. Right. And then did the economy just get weird is also something you might need to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or like I remember the year that the Bernie Madoff fund happened, and all the people who had very wealthy portfolios suddenly didn't.
But also the year that fracking got really big in Pennsylvania, so suddenly brand new prospects came out of nowhere.
Yep. Exactly. And these are the things we have to navigate. So we become the jack of all trades, master of all trades, right? I would never say we're masters.
Or of economic analysis.
Yeah, at least that. All right. So, all right. So in preparing your portfolio, pardon me. Sorry. What just happened? Sorry, there we go. All right. So in preparing your portfolio, you need to be able to see how to reach your goals. And to do that, pardon me, it helps to look at the data, right? We're, at the end of the day, I'm a big data nerd in my own special way. But we need to look at the data so that we can see what's going on so that we can then prepare the portfolios for success, correct? But when we look at them in this way, sort of the portfolio as a whole with all the different columns and rows of data, it's not always clear, right? Like this isn't the clearest way to necessarily look at something. So we want to analyze the portfolios. And when I say analyze, for those who aren't analysts in the traditional sense, it's not a scary term. I'm suggesting we use Excel and some pivot tables. Like we're talking easy, 101 level analysis. But just doing a little analysis, looking at our portfolio in slightly different ways, helps you to gain a sense of where your portfolios are at currently. And then you have to keep those fiscal year goals in mind, asking yourself all sorts of questions like, does the composition of this portfolio that we're looking at support the fiscal year goals? Does this portfolio, is it positioned to help us achieve those goals? And is there anything about the portfolio that's going to stop us from getting to those goals? So, and I would just go right off the bat and solicit Bruce Wayne for all the money in the world. He is supposed to be super rich, right? But that might not always be the case. Just because someone's super wealthy in your portfolio and they're Batman doesn't mean you go right out and solicit them. So to answer the questions you might have, as I suggest, we use pivot tables to help us get there because these are easy. They're built into Excel. They're easy to access. We don't have to buy any special bells and whistles for those of us in the small shops who we can't afford bells and whistles, right? So easy ways to look at our data, segment it out into various things. And these are just sort of 2-column pivot tables. They aren't even super fancy or finessed. Just let's see who in the portfolio, same portfolio we were looking at just one page ago. This one of my superheroes. Looking at this portfolio, how does it look if we sort it out by capacity level, taking the names and the sort of that white noise data, like, so we don't know which one is Batman and which one's Wonder Woman, but they're still in here somewhere. But what are their gift capacities? Like, what do those clusters look like? What does it look like when we cluster them by donor cycle stage? Who do we have and do we have what we need? So imagine you're looking at this portfolio and someone's telling you that you need to bring in 6 major gifts this coming year. Well, do we even have those folks ready and available? And it looks like down here on the bottom, we have 3 people who are in the solicitation. So we have a good chance of bringing in 3 gifts, assuming those are like primed, ready, and we know they're going to say yes to solicitations. But then who's after that, right? I want to be looking at those 7 people in cultivation, but out of those 7, who are the right ones to be asking? So maybe we see who out of those 7 people in cultivation are our $5 million people. Again, another pivot table. So you can see where I'm going with this. Like you slice and dice the information to see, can we even get to the goal that someone has set for us? And we would love to assume that all goals are set based on the data. Not always the case. Sometimes someone just says, we're going to raise $10 million this year without consulting what you raised last year versus what's in the pipeline this year. They just pick a number. And that has happened places that I have worked in the past, and it's a creative way to set goals. But it happens. So we have to figure out, can we actually get there based on what we have? All right. I just want to take a little temperature check in the room. How we all feeling? Questions, concerns, comments, anything in the chat? Are we feeling like this all makes sense? We can go straight back to our desks and set ourselves up for perfect success. So far, so good. We've got this. Oh, Chris is saying this is very good. Thank you, Chris. All right. So on to our next slide. So we're looking at our data. We're going to slice and dice it using just some basic pivot tables to make our lives easy. If you don't know how to run pivot tables, I think there is someone put in the chat, self-paced course on pivot tables. There's a link to it. So
that was me, obvious pandering to our marketing.
Okay. Not a problem. But so once we know how to do the pivot tables, we're going to slice and dice our portfolios, assuming that we know what the goals are for the year. I don't know about you all, and maybe some of you have been in this situation, but I've worked at places where they didn't tell us what the goal was, or they didn't set a goal, which goes back to that slide way back, you know, if you don't know where you're going, and will get you there kind of situation. But there are organizations where they do not set an annual goal. So what other things are there? If it's not a financial goal, what's the point of your year? Is it to throw your big gala? Is it to, you know, have the big walkathon? Like I'm thinking some smaller orgs may not be able to set a financial goal or something, but you might set something different as a goal for the year. So who's going to help you get there? So we want to create a plan for success based on this information. So how do we do that? So we want to allow in our plan some rooms for us to be able to, you know, make adjustments, right? Whenever we set goals, there's likely going to be adjustments that we need to make to the portfolios to allow those fundraisers to achieve those goals. If your fundraisers, you know, maybe they cover certain geographic areas, certain program areas, certain class years, you might need to work within certain parameters in order to still make adjustments, but you might need to adjust their portfolios. So if we're looking back at my superhero portfolio from a couple of slides ago, if I don't have enough people poised and ready for a solicitation this year, and I'm being asked to bring in 6 major gifts with this portfolio, but we only have 3 in solicitation, there's 7 in cultivation, and those 7 are in the earliest part. What can I do to get this gift officer where they need to be so they can make those 6 asks and hopefully get 6 gifts, right? This is a small portfolio for the case of this example. But who do I need to put in their portfolio? How do I need to help them? What do I need to adjust so that they have what they need? If they're being asked to bring in a lot of gifts, we need to make sure that they have people in solicitation and or cultivation. If they're being asked to qualify a lot of people, let's make sure they have people who are in identifications who they can go out and qualify. Did I hear someone unmute? I'm not sure. Nope, guess not. Okay. So we might need to make adjustments. And then we need to think about moving prospects out of a portfolio so that we can move some new ones in. We don't want to bloat the portfolios. That often happens, right? We just say, I'll just keep putting people in, and by the time you know it, when no one's paying attention, a portfolio of 75 people is now 125, now 225, now 350. Biggest one I've ever seen that I've had to work with and deal with like firsthand was 450, which was about 350 too many.
Okay, if I have some questions here.
Sure.
So there are organizations where the culture is the gift officers get a shopping mall and then they just go shopping. And the way you're presenting this is an organization where the prospect development team or the prospect management team is responsible for deciding what goes into a gift officer's portfolio. Do you have any tips for managing the tension between those two desires, I guess?
Yeah. So the shopping mall is just when they have like if I'm understanding, like if they have the big pool of people and they just grab who they want.
They call it a holding pool or a new prospect pool, fishing pool. Yeah.
I think of it like that scene in Jaws where you chum the water and then all the sharks show up. Yeah. Because it's not a fair fight sometimes. Like the biggest shark gets the best people, right? Because it's not a fair fight. And I've worked for those shops where you just say, here are some new prospects, and the people around the table or something, someone's like, I'll take them.
Yeah.
And whoever says I'll take them.
And then that poor guy who is, supposed to by design be underfed prospects is sitting there going, okay. Yeah.
Or the newest person gets the worst portfolio because they've cannibalized and taken all the good ones from their old portfolio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If we think that everybody steals your office furniture and puts their crap in there when you leave a job and the new guy gets hired. I mean, I've seen portfolios have that happen.
Yes. There's a couple ways to deal with that. I mean, there's a couple ways you can deal with that sort of like holding pool / chumming the water circumstance is to stop it, which is not as easy as it sounds, right? The 2 simple words, stop it. But you have to change the culture of how they get people. And like I said much earlier, like changing culture is hard, but you have to make the case for why like from the prospect research or management side of the house, you have to make a case to someone probably higher up the org chart. Again, this is culture and office politics and all those things we talked about earlier. You have to make the case to them as to why it's better to say, this prospect's going to go to Linda, and this one's going to go to Ruben, and this one's going to go to, explain to them why that's a better way of parsing out the people in that holding pool. And the way to make that case, because I'm not just going to tell you to make a case and just pray to the wind. You're making the case because you're trying to poise everyone's portfolio for success. So if someone gets all of the people who are in identification, they're going to spend all their time trying to qualify people and possibly move them into cultivation. They're not being poised to bring in gifts. But if their annual goal is to bring in gifts, you need to then shuffle some folks around so they have people who are in cultivation, sort of in a later stage of cultivation in there. So you have to explain, like, you're poisoning them for success. If we want this entire team to be able to bring in $10 million and we have 5 gift officers, $2 million a piece, like if we're just dividing the pie evenly, I need to make sure that each of those 5 gift officers has $2 million worth of potential. And if you're just grabbing people, all willy-nilly out of the holding pool, there's no rhyme or reason to that. It's not helpful. But if I can say, I want to give you, X number of people at a certain rating level who are a little bit more warm prospects, at least I'm trying to poise you for success. So when you're making the case, you got to explain the strategy behind why it makes sense to not have it sort of be a feeding frenzy. And anyone who's still doing the feeding frenzy mode, like, you got to get there. Because you need to be strategic, because the other organizations that you are raising dollars, other organizations raising dollars from these same people, they're doing it. They've already gone to this model, some of them, hopefully a lot of them. And if you haven't gotten there, get there and get there fast, because other places are doing it, and you want to make sure that you have an equal opportunity to get in front of these donors and to get your, to make your case for your funding for your organization. So make sure you do that. And then the other way to approach the whole feeding frenzy thing, if they don't buy into your strategy, is to just quietly go about it anyhow. So you're managing from the bottom up. It's going to be harder, it's going to be slower, and you're probably not going to be as successful year 1, year 2, or year 3 doing it. But eventually you'll still get to the same point. You'll say, you know what, we're already doing this anyhow, but I've been doing it quietly and the hardest way. If you just let me do it, and I start parsing out as prospect research management person who goes to which portfolio, and we have a strategy for that, this will go faster, we'll be successful faster. But sometimes you have to go a little bit stealth, and it's not like you're doing anything wrong. It's just you are trying to help your gift officers, but a little more quietly, because the culture hasn't changed yet, and because they're not listening to your case yet. So both my answers result in stop it. Just want to stop it now, want to stop it soon. Right. Other questions about holding pools and how to deal with the feeding frenzy? Oh, I see something in the chat. All right, so we have Chris asking, we have a fairly new gift officer who was asking for another 30 or so prospects added to his portfolio. The colleges he support is weak on donors. What would be a better criteria to look at? Gifts, largest totals, or if it is really weak, would you also look at predictive modeling or capacity? I think you look at all of these things if you have them. Not every place has predictive modeling. So if you have it, great, definitely use that. I mean, that's a tool in your toolbox. But I would use all of those data points to try and find some better prospects for them. And if the 30, like, I don't know if he's asking for 30 specific ones or 30 in general, but if he's asking for 30 specific ones, if he's asking for the wrong ones, tell him why they're the wrong ones and give him better ones. If he's just asking for 30 in general, poise him for success as best you can. You still might not be able to poise him for ultimate success because they may not be there. He may not have the strongest prospects in that college to support what they're trying to do, in which case you need to talk to whoever is setting the goals. And that's a bigger conversation that deals with the office politics and the culture piece and the who has power in the office, right? but you need to talk to who's setting the goals in some way, shape, or form, or get someone else to do the talking for you, like send that message up the food chain. But someone needs to talk to setting the goal, saying this is not the most realistic goal. All right. Marion saying also you can model prospects from other colleges who would be interesting in the specific college. And yep, have done it for another college, called it pilfering, but it's honoring donor interest. Exactly. Yeah. Super. All right. Other questions, thoughts, concerns, problems we need to solve, solutions others want to share? No, not yet. We're feeling shy and we're still eating lunch. Oh, so yeah, the creating plan for your success, you have to adjust portfolios because they're not going to be right in the first place. You have to move some people out in order to move the right ones in. So in the case that Chris was talking about, where this person's wanting 30 new prospects, hopefully there's enough space in the portfolio. Hopefully it's not adding 30 new ones isn't going to bloat their portfolio. I mean, 30 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have to actually develop the relationship and do all the work, there's a lot more besides just the number 30 that has to be considered. Like 30 relationships is a lot to manage, right? And then we were talking about sort of the holding pool mentality. Some places have a holding pool and they use the method where prospect research management makes the assignments out, but they still have a holding pool because they've done the research and they're like, here's some interesting people, but your portfolios, you're not ready. So at least make sure that that holding pool is prioritized in a way that when someone does move out, you can immediately put someone in, because you want to make sure like you're ready. Like I'm terrible with sports references, but isn't there like a batter's on, what is he on?
Batter on deck.
Thank you. See, sports ball. It's not my thing. Marianne knows these things. But yeah, but you always want to have someone on deck so that when someone moves out, passes away, tells you to buzz off, told you they've done their ultimate giving, you could say, great, move them off to stewardship or annual fund or wherever they belong, scoot someone else right in and say, great, okay, Susan, like Linda's moving out, Susan's moving in. That's who your new prospect is. And then they can start immediately on them without missing a beat.
Do you have any tips on prioritizing? Is that another slide or?
It is not another slide because I didn't put together tons of them, but
as the analyst, that's exactly what I've done, is prioritizing pools.
Yeah, and that's what I would.
The model was who is going to take a visit or who's going to give this year, like who's in their life stage that they would make a gift.
Yeah, and for those who don't have things like predictive scores or don't have a lot of analysis or funding to hire analysts, use data points you have.
Yeah,
because we're smart people, right? People in this meeting today, we're smart. Use the data points that you have available to you, which may not be as much and they won't be as accurate as using predictive modeling and hiring an analyst to help you with these things, but it's better than nothing. So who's been giving?
Yeah, there's some exploratory statistics that will also say at what point in my life am I going to make a major gift? But the other piece is like whose screening results show philanthropy elsewhere.
Yep.
Like you could, what is it, knock down how many pins can you knock down for this prospect? They give to us, they give to other places, so that they're philanthropic. They have the capacity, they have liquid capacity, and they're accepted a visit recently, or they're open to communication.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember I was working somewhere and we had a prospect who looked fabulous on paper. Fabulous. Very wealthy, had all the right markers, but had 3 triplets who just started college. I mean, 3 triplets. They had triplets. Yeah, triplets always 3. They had triplets who just started college, and this was the 3rd wife that this gentleman was married to. So in my mind, I was thinking there might be, financial stuff tied to the previous 2 divorces because the wives didn't pass; they divorced. That we need to take it into consideration. And now this person's footing the bill for 3 college tuitions, and the 3 children were going to, very expensive schools. They weren't going to like community college. Oh, fellow triplet mom. All right. Oh, I feel your pain, Catherine. I had a girlfriend who she had 2 children of her own, and then she later in life she got remarried. She'd been married before, had 2 children. Then when she remarried, she married a gentleman who had 2 sons. His sons were twins. His sons were the same age as her son. So she ended up having sort of financial triplets when they went to college, even though that wasn't her plan at the beginning, because they all went the same year. Oof, it's a lot to foot the bill. Oh, there's some other comment I missed. Sorry. Let me go back to the chat. In Aisha saying, in some of the other places I've been, it's been development officers, leadership's assumption that all major gift prospects should be assigned when we do not have enough giving officers to assign, or they feel a pool is being forgotten. How do you manage those conversations? Oh, I love me a good Dunbar number. There's a psychologist, primate specialist person in England, Robin Dunbar, did a study, came up with a number and said, no, studying monkeys or apes, I forget which it was now. And based on that, determined how many close relationships one, in that case, primate, could handle, and then transfer that over to people. So the idea is that we as people can only handle a certain number of relationships, including our spouse, our siblings, our parents, our auto mechanic, our dentist, our accountant, all those people, our high school best friend, and our prospects. Right? Not, one is not separate from the other. These are relationships we have to develop. Some of them are our personal ones and some of them are our professional ones, but we can only do so many. And then after a certain number, the quality of those relationships starts to diminish. So using something like a Dunbar number, you can say, well, a person can only really, have about 100, I think the number was like 125 quality relationships. Now, people have argued Dunbar number, but I just stick to that thing because there's some science there. And personally, I feel like a good sized portfolio is 50 to 75 for most people, just because in addition to your family, your high school buddy, your accountant, your PCP, like all the other people you need to manage, 50 to 75 other people that you're working on at work as far as your prospect pool is a pretty good number. It sounds small because I know we come from like a history of places where like 250, 300, but let's be real. We were stuffing people in portfolios back in the day because we didn't know what else to do with them. We weren't using data analytics a long time ago. But a long time, I'm talking like 10, 15 years ago, wasn't being used quite the way it is now. So we didn't know how to prioritize them, but now we do. So use Dunbar's number, make yourself a case for why they should have a smaller portfolio, and the holding pool gets prioritized based on actual data points. Like Marianne was saying, like we can use some of the predictive modeling pieces. We can use the data we just have in our database to help ourselves. Yeah. So does that help? Hopefully, Aisha. Oh, all right. And then we have Kimberly in the chat saying, once you do pass along the prospects on to gift officers, do you track to see how they have done in the portfolio? Yes. Yes. And hopefully you're tracking that through, depends on what database you have and what they call them, but your engagement moments, your interaction moments, whether that's an email, a phone call, or whatnot, and you're having some way of tracking, how long they are at a stage. So how long are they in qualification? How long are they in cultivation? How long does it take to get them to the gift and or out of the portfolio? Because sometimes they move into a portfolio and then life changes. Maybe they get into the portfolio and suddenly their business goes belly up because COVID or something happens that they didn't expect. So we move them out to annual fund or planned giving or wherever it makes more sense at that point. But being able to track how long they're in the portfolio is helpful because you can see that. If you have the ability to track stage ages, which not all databases are set up that way, but you can trick it by, I know Razor's Edge isn't set up that way for those who are Razor's Edge people. You have to track it somewhere else, usually in an attribute, sometimes in the, what do they call it, the contacts or something, but you can track it in there. It's just every database has its own sort of uniqueness and things it doesn't do. So if the things you're trying to track doesn't track it well, find some other way to do it, find a workaround. All right. Yeah, Marianne's going back to the portfolio size, so 50 to 75 families or single people. Yes, exactly. And then Aisha's saying, I've used data analytics to show them the traction of prospects they're currently assigned, not meeting or moving, as an example of why their portfolio size should be reduced. Perfect. Yes. Always use data to support your case. big fan. It doesn't always work. Some people don't care. That sounds silly, but sometimes you make the case with data and their eyes glaze over and like, yeah, I understand what you're saying to a point, but this is what I want. So sometimes people get stuck there, and that goes back to culture and office politics. And Aisha's saying her rule with them is always they don't have to assign to reach out to a prospect. Yeah, assuming that no one else is working with that person and no one has sort of that territorial ownership of them, anyone should be able to reach out to them in theory. Oh, and Mary and saying there's also that you need enough prospects to visit in order to travel to a location, and the holding pool helps with that exactly. So having a holding pool, sort of those what we call filler visits, which makes people sound inconsequential, but the most inconsequential people can become your most consequential people once you visit them. So, and sometimes those people, once you visited them as a filler visit, become, part of your portfolio or your best prospect. So it's just a matter of getting in front of them.
I heard from, when I asked gift officers, well, how many prospects do you need in a location to justify traveling there? They said 50.
Oh, holy mother of God.
Well, in order to
Yeah,
get enough visits to justify a day, this was
I know.
high, what is it, high volume shop.
Yep.
Some of the clients I work with now, they'll travel to a location and talk to one person, but that's a $5 million prospect. They don't want to
Yeah.
focus on the other visits. So yeah. Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on that? Or would you like me to just hush up for the rest of the session?
No, no. I said at the beginning people can talk once they're done chewing.
That's true. I'm done chewing.
Um, I'm a big fan of if it's the right person, you go see them. Like Warren Buffett lives in Nebraska. How many prospects do any one of us have in Nebraska? I'm not wrong about that. How many prospects do you really have, good prospects in Nebraska? Just, think, and you're going to come up with, yeah, not many. But if Warren Buffett were one of them, would you go see him? Heck yeah, right? You try to get in front of him. He's freaking Warren Buffett, right? So the case being made, and I'm using him because he's an extreme example. Please don't just stuff him in your database and then make a case to go to Nebraska. But if he's affiliated with your organization, all the more power to you. Go see that gentleman if you can. But if you have a rogue person, a $5 million rated person in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, go see them, because if you don't see them this year or next year, by the time you finally make the case to really see them, it's been 5 or 10 years. The longer you wait, the more distant they start to feel from your organization. So think of this from the donor perspective. If I'm sending in gifts, I live in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, and you're not coming to see me, you're not, you reach out with generic emails, a couple of phone calls here and there to give me updates on your organization. If no one's really paying attention to me, I'm going to take my dollars and go elsewhere. Maybe I'm the grumpy one, but I'm assuming other prospects might feel similarly. If they're not feeling appreciated, not feeling seen, they're not feeling like someone's spending time with them, they will go elsewhere. So if it's the right prospect in the middle of nowhere, still go see them if you can. And making that case to the expense people that why you're flying out to Wyoming and then driving 3 hours to see one person, they might try to not pay for that expense. But you need to find an ally higher up the org chart in development to help you make the case to go see that one person. So, Chris is saying that is a long state from east to west. Been there, drove it. Nebraska. Oh, I know, Nebraska or like Texas. That's a biggie. I wouldn't want to drive across that puppy, especially not right now. They're going through a nasty, nasty heat wave. Oh, poor Texas. Oh, right. Isha's saying that is exactly the world I live in. They want 50 names for a travel, but they only concentrate on the one visit that's high worth. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Been there, done that. I remember literally sitting in a meeting once, Aisha. And I was, and there was one, that's why I keep picking on Wyoming. There was a prospect in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming, and she had purposely moved there because her family owned like 400 acres of land, and they had mineral rights or something like that, like something that, I think it was mineral rights. Either way, the wealth was land that she lived in the middle of, and no one would go see her. and every year she just kept getting older and older and more distant and distant from the organization. And I said, by the time you finally do see her, she's just not going to care because she'll be old and have already made her estate plans. Go see her now. Well, she's younger and hasn't. And it just, oh, I don't know that they ever saw her. I left the organization. I don't know that they ever saw her, but I hope someone smartened up and did, because it would have been worth their time. She was an interesting person. All right. And Marion saying, to Aisha, just send them a lot more names to talk to. Oh, can you just send them a lot more names to talk to? Or does it look like, yeah, keep shoveling them on? Or does it look like, from your perspective, that they bring home the gifts so the focus is justified? And then Aisha says, yes, we give them more names. The high worth person most times are the repeated ask donors. So mostly the visits are stewardship related. So helpful, but that is where the concentration is. Yeah. All right. Oh, we got Sue Ann saying, I remind folks that even if it is an important discovery prospect in a remote location, they should look at the prospects where they might have a flight layover. Or if it's the middle of Nebraska, a flight layover might involve hopping in a car and driving 3 hours to go see them. That's my take. That wasn't Sue Ann. Um, but yeah, there's, it's okay to just stop in a state for a day to go see the one person in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, and then get back in a plane and fly out to California, where there's probably more prospects, I suppose. All right. Oh, I got Susan saying, she's asked to duck out. All right. I think I've caught up on the chat for the moment. All right. Do we have another slide? Let's see. Maybe. Oh, yeah. I did. All right. So in setting up your portfolios for success, as you're sort of prioritizing your new year, you want to identify some of the milestones. Yes, we have a goal. Our goal is the big goal. But what are the small mini goals? Like, when would we feel successful? Like, by Q1, should we have achieved a certain number of dollars or number of visits, or are we trying to qualify a certain number of people? Because you need to give people nice sort of bite-sized successes along the way. So identifying the milestones, and this might mean sitting with the person who set their goals in the first place and talking about, like, what would be a realistic goal to get by end of Q1, end of Q2, end of Q3, and set those smaller milestones so they have something small to hit. Because a $5 million goal is big. I'm not picking a number to divisible by 4. A $12 million goal is big, but a $3 million goal in Q1 doesn't seem as big. I mean, it's a lot of money. But if you can find one person in Q1 to give $3 million, cha-ching, you've hit your goal. Yay, success, celebrate, move on to Q2. But you need to look at the portfolios, pace out the work, figure out, this also helps them pace out. You don't want to make all your asks for those of us with fiscal years, say that end June 30th. A lot of higher eds, a lot of nonprofits have a June 30 date. I know there's no June 31st. The June 30 end of fiscal year. And I don't know about you all, but I've always found that there's this mad scramble, like at the beginning of May, everyone's like, oh dear God, the end of the fiscal year's coming. Like, you didn't know all calendar year. And then in June, people freak out and they're like, we have to get on the phones and call everyone. I'm like, well, why didn't you do that in August? You had a whole year to do some of this work, and you could have been on the phones calling, but if you didn't pace out your work and have appropriate milestones to shoot for, you're in the mad scramble at that last quarter. And we want to avoid the mad scramble because no one likes that. That's no fun. And it's not the most productive way to bring in money. And it doesn't probably make the donors feel very good. You can tell when someone's mad scrambling at the end of the fiscal year because they keep telling you it's the end of the fiscal year. And donors, unless your fiscal year ends on December 31st, don't care about the end of your year. They care about the end of their tax year. So the end of your fiscal year doesn't mean as much to them as it does to you. So you hit them throughout the year. Work with them, be in contact with them, and get those gifts in the rogue months. Get them in August, get them in March, get those gifts in February, right? Those months that aren't as quote unquote sexy because they're in the middle of the vast wasteland. They're not near the holiday. They're not near the calendar year end, but there's still months where you can be bringing in gifts and pacing out the work. All right. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking. She's asleep on my floor and she's leap wagging and barking at the same time. All right. So we stopped a little early, but happy to have folks pop into the chat or ask questions, or I can go back to certain slides if you want to take a look and talk more about them. So you let me know what you want to do. Oh, and in the chat, Marianne is, or oh, someone's put in a thing about our next water cooler, which is, I made a slide for it because that's smart like that. Our next water cooler chat is in September, and there's a little detail on what it's going to be. But
we're doing our salesy things.
Yes, yeah. But the water cooler chats are fun, and we have a guest lecture our guest presenter next month, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, Liz Richmond, former APRA president.
Yep.
Questions or comments? This is the picture.
I thought he looked inquisitive.
I have put that look on your face.
Yeah. I'm not the first or the last one to do it. All right. Any problems we can help you solve? We got a few minutes left, and you have a captive audience. A lot of smart people in this room. Oh yes. Well, you're all very welcome. Very, very lovely things in the chat. Very, very fun. Very good group. All right. So we're all feeling pretty good, pretty empowered. We can go back. We can start getting our portfolios ready for the fiscal year.
And say Ruthie said, Ruthie,
Yep.
the consultant I just went to a webinar, said that you have, Christine wants to know if she's going to see us in Indianapolis. Stopel opted not to go to Indianapolis this year. We spent a bit of money doing exhibitor booths, so we decided to preserve cash this year. So we're sorry we won't see you. But next year at APRA, make sure that we know you're coming, so we can all hang out somehow.
Definitely.
It's always good to make a vendor buy you something: breakfast, snack, coffee.
Definitely.
Yeah, but tell us how it goes. Tell us your favorite session so we can try to steal in the videos or something.
All right, let's stop sharing so we can go back to seeing everybody.
Yeah.
There y'all are.
Hey.
All right. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns, confusion, things you need solved while we're all here together?
If you all are going to AASP, by the way, let me know. I'll be there in September. I've already promised a client if AASP doesn't feed us breakfast one morning, they should get me for it. So let me know, because I'm on East Coast time. Breakfast time isn't going to feel like breakfast time to me. It's going to feel like work time. You know what I mean? I'll be up before all y'all.
Oh, look, Aisha wants to get us down to Florida. Hint, hint. Not in the summer, you won't. Woo, too hot.
It's been a long time since we've presented at APRA Florida, so bring us down. I remember when last time I was there, I wanted to get a solar panel for the top of my head while I was walking around. Yeah, but not during hurricane season.
Oh, no. I'm a New Englander, like,
Yeah,
to the core, so the hot and the humid doesn't do well. So if
yeah.
it's not a hot, humid month, I'm all in.
Great.
All right. Well, thank
Well,
you
we'll
all
hang
for
out as long as you guys
coming.
want us to.
Yeah.
Just, to ask us about anything.
Yeah. Captive audience.
Same here, Linda. Linda's already targeted my major gift, my first major gift. She's already figured out how much it's going to be.
Ah, smart cookie.
Yeah.
I'm going to come out and visit you because, that's how important you are to us. So
during the summer, so we can do wine tours and you can swim in a gorge, or during
absolutely,
you can go leaf peeping and look at gorges.
Yes. No, I love that idea.
Okay. And then we'll find people in New York City for you to just, go that way. I can be your layover. It'll be the opposite of an actual layover.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. But I can put you on a bus to New York and you can write all your notes up about me and then talk to other people.
Very
Hey,
cool.
Roberta.
Hey, I know, popped in, didn't I?
Yeah.
You said I could ask about anything, so I'm going to ask about something that has to do with this, but not really to do with this.
Okay.
Great.
I'm really new to this, okay? And I've never, when I say that, I'm talking about portfolios and prospect management. And so I've never had anyone that I've worked with that's done it, okay? In fact, my whole system is set up on Ruthie's slide presentation at Apra, Pennsylvania. Okay. So my question is though, how can I develop reports that will give me the statistics that I need to use to put in to do these things? See, I'm doing all of it manually and it's killing me.
What system are you on?
Razor's Edge, which is not very much fun with this.
Yeah.
NXT or RE7?
Well, we're on NXT, but we also have a database view.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
Yep.
So, and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And I keep trying to set up things because what I'd like to do, the thing I would like to do is to be able to tell unique touches each quarter. Is that
You see-
possible?
Yes, if you have first you need to make sure that your actions are set up right, the action types and all that sort of thing, so you know which actions are the type of touches that you're looking for.
That is done
And-
the way you said to do it.
Yep. So you set that all up like on the back end of database view, get your drop down set up the way you need it so that you can
Yes.
record the right thing. And then you just pull all of your, like if you're looking at a quarter or a year, whatever it may be, set your period of time, pull out all of the actions. It's going to be big
Right.
with some associated data, and then just sort to see, like sort by their ID.
You do your
So each
bit.
ID is
So what
Fine.
I'd have to do though, I mean, with that, I'd have to each quarter compare it to the last quarter and see what the duplicates are.
See, and that sounds like, you know what, Ruthie, that sounds like a Power Automate project, or it sounds like, my job is to sell stuff, Roberta, so I mean, go to your
Sell
happy
stuff,
place.
okay.
Yeah, go to your happy place if you don't want to spend the next couple of minutes being sold something, but
Well, I just, is what I can afford. It's not that I don't mind being sold, but
okay.
yeah.
So we have a couple of tools to make situations like yours a lot easier to manage. The first is a coaching hour for $300. You get online with one of us, whichever one of us is best. And it feels like Ruthie feels good, but also Greg or Wilfred, because it's about pulling data out and putting it in a way that you can see it and not having to repeat looking at last quarter and stuff.
Yep.
What you want is this one and the last one. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
that's all stuff that can be programmed if you have a good programmer, and we do. So that's one. But the other is our programmer Wilfred. He's using Power Automate to do a lot of stuff like that. Get
we were
this
wondering, yeah, I was wondering if you could do it somehow in BI.
Power BI. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do it
Yeah.
in Power BI. Yeah.
That's what was my other thing. But see, again, I'm not sure quite how to do it, but it seemed
Right.
like it should work.
Yeah, and that's one of the that's where Stop Hell loves to step in. I've got this tool, I know it can be done, but I only have, I have less than $1,000. And we come in and we go, okay, spend some time with us.
Okay.
It
Can you get me information?
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, I can put it in chat if you're okay with that. To our coaching hour, but also you have our email, you have Ruthie's email anyway, where you can go, hey, you promised me.
You promised me.
Nothing wrong with it.
No.
Let me get you the link to our coaching page. We'll start with one for me. If you're looking at Power BI, that's me.
I thought it's a thing we have that's free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought, we could maybe implement that without having to spend a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's the what is it? It's free if your time is worth nothing.
Yeah.
kind of
Because you
deal?
have to learn how to use it.
Well, yeah, that's what, yeah,
Yeah. That's the
Put it
rub
on.
on Power BI. The tool is
Right.
free.
right.
But
The
learning how to
tool
use
is
it
free,
takes
yeah.
time.
And I've watched a few tutorials, but
Yeah. And it's a great tool. It's just learning how to use it takes a bit of time, and learning how to use it for very specific purposes
That's what I was having, because what
May or may not take place.
my last thought is I was going to combine 3 query spreadsheets together and see what it did with them.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds,
That's all I know how to do, because I don't really know how
Yeah.
to do it. So it's just all experimentation.
yeah, exactly. And that's the stuff that we can help with.
Okay, did it come? I didn't see it come up. Did it come up?
Oh, in chat. Take a
I
look at
didn't
chat.
see it. I mean, I don't know why. I have Ruthie's email.
Yeah, I don't see it yet either.
Oh, I sent it to Linda.
Oh,
Linda's like, I can see it just fine.
Here, let me get it. Let's
that's
see.
okay. I just wanted to be sure to get it. And I didn't see it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Linda was saying it was nice to see you.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
there you go. I sent
Okay.
one to you directly, Roberta.
Okay. And then when I do this, then I lose you too. I don't know where you are now.
All right, well, we can hear you and we can see you.
That's okay. I'm really good with technology. You can tell.
We're there.
That's the
We're
other
just
thing,
like,
right? That's the other thing we love to help is, these fundraisers. I was hard to be a fundraiser. Why do I have to deal with a computer? And we go.
Well, thank you so much, because I'm struggling with it, and I have been struggling with it, and I kind of, for me, I'm on a deadline. I'd like to be able, because our fiscal year started, I'd like to be able to, at the end of September, to
Get it rolling.
start these things going so that they're seeing them. And
Yep.
that kind
What
of
you're
stuff.
talking about with when was the last time they saw them and the time before they saw them? In Power BI, it's called a DAX expression.
Okay.
So a programming statement.
Yep.
And so if you're like, no, I don't want to do that, learn how to do that, then don't panic. You have a resource.
Okay. Well, I will
Yeah.
definitely look into it, because I like some training.
Yeah, we love that kind of engagement. We go in,
Well,
we make it all
I'm-
better. You glow about us, and then we go away and take our money. We love that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like so many people. I'm a one-person shop, and I have 10 million things to do, and all of this takes so much time.
No,
it
see,
does.
there's a lot
It
of
does.
automation that we can help you with then.
So, okay. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
All right.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
How are you feeling, Linda? You going to apply any of this?
What'd you say, Fudge?
You going to apply any of this?
Yeah, actually, I have a new team. And, what's really, what's really important for us is engagement, but looking at much more specific portfolios than we've had before. So I actually am looking at what we're doing, and instead of having such random people, like, oh, this person's worth $4 million, but we've never talked to him before, and we keep sending him stuff and he never reaches out. So we are narrowing down the portfolios to really, really hone in on people who deserve to be stewarded and who need to feel
Good.
more connected to the university.
No, I offered, when Burn Sunset was looking at doing a screening, I offered to do the qualifications for him, but of course he went, I'm not sure that we want an alumna looking at other alumni wealth data. And I agreed with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ruthie does a lot of the screening qualifications for us. If you want a gig for that, we would have to charge you for that one though.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Good to know.
Yeah, because the right Marianne, you want the right Marianne Pelletier.
Yeah.
You don't want to call me up and say, how about $1 million? And I
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, but let me know if you need anything.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Yeah, because I know what position you're in. I mean, one day you woke up and you had a new president, and you were the new vice president.
Exactly.
You're only a year into your job. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh my
things
goodness.
are exciting here. You would really like her. She's actually moving us forward.
okay.
I mean, I truly, truly believe that she sees things differently and is moving us forward so that we can start thriving.
It's been a couple of presidents since we've had a woman in charge. So
Yes, exactly. And my staff is all women now too. So
oh.
Nice.
I'm not
That's
supposed to
cool.
say that too loud, but
Are you in trouble with HR for that? I got in trouble
Not yet.
for that. Oh, okay.
Not yet. I was told, the next person you hire really probably should be a man, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have any money left to hire anybody. So,
By the time I have the money, you'll forget that you said that.
yeah, exactly right.
Small
But,
colleges, God love them.
Plus,
yeah,
the next person you hire is going to be highly qualified for the job,
that's
regardless
exactly
of all
right.
other things.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, and actually I was even just thinking, because looking at here, you know, everybody, there were a lot of women on this, you know, it has to be a majority of women in fundraising, right?
is.
I
It
don't know
is.
what the statistic is.
Yeah. Yep.
You
Except
know,
for people at the top. It's just, you go to a library, you know, you go to a library and everybody's a woman except for the library director, right? It's a fundraising
Yes.
thing.
right, exactly.
That's been my experience. Of course, I'm jaded from the 80s and 90s. Like it's shifting now, because Ruthie and I have a lot of conversations with new female vice presidents who are like, I got to sort this stuff out.
Yep.
So, yep,
Yeah.
you're with a
Yeah.
growing group.
Yep. Yeah. So did I do it on purpose? Not really. I mean, these absolutely were the most qualified people. But on the other
Of
hand, I'm
course.
kind of proud of, you know, having a female team.
You got a posse. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were founded by women. So, you know, and had a lot of women leaders. So
Yes. The School for Jane Addams should have female leadership.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
There was a couple of women pilots. They were the only women flying. They were flying the plane, and one of the passengers teased them, "Oh, all women in the cockpit?" They go, "No, hen house."
Oh, that's cute.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah. So
Love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, I mean, you see how busy I am, but anything I can do to help.
I definitely will. Thank you so much. Thank you too, Ruthie. It was really, really
you're
great.
welcome.
I really appreciate it.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. See you soon, I hope. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.